It's been 2 years since my husband died, and for all that time, I've left this cabin in the Catskills empty and locked tight. But when I came here today, a chill ran down my spine as I looked at the yard. The hybrid roses my husband loved were thriving, their soil freshly watered. When I dared to check the hidden security camera footage, what I saw on the monitor made my heart stop. Before the story begins, please write in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can continue to grow and bring you more interesting stories. The black sedan moved slowly, cutting through the thin fog that blanketed the mountains that afternoon. Behind the wheel, Evelyn took a long breath. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to channel the tightness that had suddenly constricted her chest. 2 years had passed since Michael, her husband, had died from a sudden heart attack. And for those 2 years, Evelyn had never dared to set foot in their mountain cabin. There were too many sweet, painful memories there. But today, she had to be brave. Her mind was made up to sell the property. The high maintenance costs, and the ache she felt every time she thought of the place made letting it go seemed like the best path forward. Evelyn turned her car onto the small gravel road that led to the cabin's gate. She had pictured a depressing scene: overgrown weeds, peeling paint on the walls, scattered dry leaves, and the eerie atmosphere of a neglected, empty house. She had even mentally prepared to spend her savings on a deep cleaning service before listing it. But as the cabin's wooden gate came into view, Evelyn's brow furrowed. She slowed the car, narrowing her eyes to make sure she wasn't mistaken. The sight before her was completely unexpected. There were no tall weeds, no dull paint. The wooden fence looked glossy, as if it had just been re-stained. Evelyn stopped her car right in front of the gate. She got out, her steps hesitant. The cold mountain wind whipped at the long maxi dress she was wearing, making the fabric flutter gently. She touched her hair, making sure it was still neat, then walked toward the fence. Her eyes widened when she saw the front yard. The rose bushes were growing lush and tidy. Not just any roses, but the imported hybrid variety that the late Michael had adored. Evelyn remembered well how difficult they were to care for. They required constant attention, special fertilizer, and regular watering. If this cabin had been empty for 2 years, these plants should have withered and died. But what she saw was the opposite. The flower petals were in perfect bloom. The soil around them was rich and damp, a clear sign they had been watered just that morning or afternoon. Evelyn's heart pounded. Question after question flooded her mind. Who was taking care of all this? Could it be Leo, Michael's cousin, who she had trusted with a spare key? But Leo was always complaining about being busy with his job out of state and frequently asked Evelyn for money, claiming his business was struggling. It seemed impossible that Leo would spare the time and money to care for this remote cabin. Evelyn fumbled in her handbag for the gate key. With a trembling hand, she inserted it into the padlock. The lock wasn't rusted at all. It turned smoothly. Evelyn stepped onto the grounds. The atmosphere felt so alive, far from the impression of an empty house. She walked slowly toward the main door. The front porch was spotless. There was no thick layer of dust on its marble floor. There was even a pair of house slippers neatly placed on the shoe rack by the door. The slippers looked new. Evelyn's unease grew. She felt like a stranger about to enter someone else's home, even though the deed was clearly in her name and Michael's. She pressed her ear against the solid oak door. Silence. No sound of activity from within. Holding her breath, Evelyn inserted the key into the main door. The door swung open smoothly, without a creaking hinge. The scent of the room immediately hit her. Not the musty smell of an old house, but the soft aroma of a lavender air freshener. It was Michael's favorite scent. Evelyn stepped inside. Her legs trembled as she walked on the soft, clean living room carpet. Her eyes swept across the room. Everything looked perfect. The luxurious window drapes were pulled back neatly, letting in the afternoon light. The leather sofa in the center of the room looked polished. The glass coffee table was clean, without a single fingerprint. Even the vase on the dining table was filled with freshly cut flowers. Evelyn felt the hairs on her arms stand on end. This couldn't be the work of a ghost. This was human work. Someone had been living here. Someone had been caring for this house as if it were their own. Had a homeless person broken in? But if so, where did they get the money for expensive air fresheners and to maintain a garden so beautifully? Evelyn walked toward the kitchen. Everything was clean. The refrigerator was on, humming softly. She dared to open it. It was full. There were fresh fruits, assorted bottled drinks, vegetables, meat, and other groceries. The expiration date on the milk carton showed that these items had been purchased just a few days ago. Evelyn closed the refrigerator door weakly. She took a few steps back. Fear began to creep in. She was not alone. Whoever was living here could return at any moment. But Evelyn's curiosity overcame her fear. She had to know who was the insolent person who dared to occupy her late husband's home. Evelyn remembered something. Michael's study. There was a secret room behind the bookshelf where Michael kept a safe and the server for the hidden security cameras. Michael was obsessed with security. He had installed tiny cameras in unexpected corners that even regular guests didn't know about. Evelyn prayed silently that the system was still working. She hurried up the stairs to the second floor, her steps as light as possible. The door to Michael's study was closed. Evelyn opened it slowly. The room was also clean, just like the others. Michael's desk was neatly arranged. Evelyn went straight to the large bookshelf against the wall. She felt along the bottom of the third shelf, pressing a small, hidden wood panel. There was a soft click, and the bookshelf slid forward slightly. Evelyn pulled it, creating a gap just large enough for her to slip into the narrow room behind it. Inside the secret room, the air was a bit stuffy, but the equipment was still there. Evelyn sat in a small chair in front of a row of dark monitors. She pressed the power button on the main computer unit. An indicator light blinked. The machine hummed softly. Evelyn held her breath, waiting for the system to boot up. The monitors flickered to life, displaying the security system's logo. She typed in the password that only she and Michael knew, their wedding date. The system opened. The screen split into several small windows, showing live feeds from various angles of the cabin. The living room, kitchen, porch, master bedroom, all of them were currently empty. Evelyn breathed a sigh of relief. At least for now, no one else was in the house. But she needed answers. Her hand moved the mouse, opening the archived recordings menu. She wanted to see what happened last night. Evelyn selected the recording file from the previous day at 9 p.m. The video began to play. At first, it just showed an empty room. Evelyn fast-forwarded the footage. Suddenly, the front door opened. The living room lights turned on. Evelyn leaned closer to the screen, her eyes squinting. A man's figure entered the frame. He walked casually, as if he owned the place. He was wearing a worn flannel shirt and jeans. Evelyn covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a gasp. The shirt and jeans belonged to Michael. She knew them well. When the man turned to face the camera hidden behind the wall clock, his face became clear. It was Leo, Michael's cousin. Evelyn felt her blood run cold. So it was Leo who had been living in this cabin all this time. Leo, who always claimed to be struggling financially and begged Evelyn for sympathy, was living in luxury here. Anger began to burn in Evelyn's chest. Leo had lied to her, shamelessly. But the surprises weren't over. In the recording, Leo sat on the sofa, turned on the television, and then called out to someone. A woman came down the stairs. She was wearing long silk pajamas that looked incredibly comfortable. Her long hair was down. As the woman passed under the light of the crystal chandelier, Evelyn felt her heart stop beating. That face was so familiar. That smile was one Evelyn saw every week when they met at charity luncheons or had lunch together. It was Chloe, her best friend. Evelyn felt her world collapse. Chloe, the friend who always hugged her when she cried, missing Michael. Chloe, who always told her to be patient and strong. Chloe, who always said she was busy managing her boutique. She was here, in Evelyn's cabin, with her husband's cousin. On the monitor, Evelyn watched Chloe approach Leo, carrying a tray with sliced fruit and 2 glasses. Chloe sat next to Leo, very close, too close for the relationship of a mere friend or distant relative. Leo wrapped his arm around Chloe's shoulders familiarly, and Chloe rested her head on his chest. They laughed, chatting casually, enjoying the amenities of the cabin that should have been a sacred memory for Evelyn and Michael. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face without her realizing. Not tears of sadness, but tears of immense anger. This betrayal was too painful. The two people she trusted most had stabbed her in the back, in the most cruel way possible. Evelyn turned up the volume on the recording. The audio was a bit noisy, but clear enough. She heard Leo's booming laugh. "So comfortable, right, Chloe? It wasn't a waste of time for us to maintain this place," Leo said in the recording, taking a slice of apple. Chloe smiled, then fed a piece of fruit into Leo's mouth. "Of course. Better we enjoy it than for it to be sold cheap by that foolish widow. Besides, she'll never suspect a thing. Evelyn's too naive. She thinks you're a devoted cousin and I'm a loyal friend." Evelyn's hand clenched into a fist so tight her knuckles turned white. Chloe's words slapped her harder than any physical blow. "Foolish widow." Evelyn mouthed Chloe's words, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. She kept staring at the screen, engraving every detail of the betrayal into her memory. But what happened next in the recording made Evelyn realize that this issue wasn't just about an affair or squatting. There was something much darker. Something that made the hairs on her neck stand up straight. Leo stood up from the sofa, pacing with a serious expression. "But how long are we going to hide like this? When can we get the deed transferred into our names? I'm tired of having to pretend to be poor in front of Evelyn." Chloe laughed softly. Her laughter sounded cold and terrifying. "Patience, honey. Everything takes time. We already managed to get rid of Michael 2 years ago without a trace. You can't be impatient over some paperwork, can you?" Evelyn's breath hitched. She felt the oxygen supply in the small room suddenly vanish. Get rid of Michael without a trace. What did Chloe mean by that? Evelyn froze, her eyes wide, staring at the monitor which now seemed to be playing the most terrifying horror movie of her life. Chloe's words kept ringing in her ears, repeating like a broken record. "We already managed to get rid of Michael 2 years ago without a trace." Evelyn's body shivered violently. She hugged herself, trying to quell the tremors that seized her entire body. All this time, she and the entire family believed that Michael had died of a natural heart attack. The doctor said it was common because Michael had a history of high cholesterol and often worked overtime. No one was suspicious. No one asked for an autopsy. Michael was buried peacefully, and Evelyn had accepted her fate with resignation. But now, that resignation was shattered into a million pieces. Evelyn replayed the recording, rewinding it slightly to make sure she hadn't misheard. She put on a pair of headphones that were hanging on the wall so their conversation would be clearer. "Don't talk so loud about that," Leo replied in the video, looking a little wary even though they were alone. "If anyone hears, we're finished." "Who's going to hear?" Chloe scoffed. She got up and poured water into a glass. "This cabin is isolated. Evelyn won't come here because of the trauma, and the townspeople don't care. Our plan was perfect, honey. The herbal supplement I swapped with Michael's heart medication worked slowly but surely. No poison would be detected, just a simple heart failure." Evelyn clamped her mouth shut to stop her sobs from escaping. Tears flowed freely, soaking her cheeks. So that was it. Evelyn remembered that in the month before his death, Michael had complained that his heart medication tasted different. Bitterer. At the time, Chloe had offered to pick up Michael's prescription from the pharmacy because Evelyn was sick with pneumonia. Chloe had said the pharmacist switched the brand to a generic with the same effect. Evelyn had believed her without question. It turned out that was the beginning of a premeditated murder of her husband. Her own best friend had killed her husband. Slowly, day by day, right before her eyes. Nausea churned in Evelyn's stomach. She wanted to vomit, to scream, but suddenly her survival instinct kicked in. The faint sound of a car engine could be heard from outside the cabin. Evelyn was startled. She took off the headphones and sharpened her hearing. The sound grew clearer, approaching the gate. Her heart raced wildly. She looked at the monitor displaying the front gate camera. A white SUV had stopped there. Leo got out of the car to open the gate. They were here. Panic seized Evelyn. Her car was parked in the yard, right in front of the porch. Leo would definitely see it. Evelyn cursed her foolishness. Why hadn't she parked outside? She was trapped. There was no way she could leave now and run into them. Leo was a big, strong man, and if they knew she had discovered the secret of the murder, her life wouldn't be safe. Evelyn looked around the secret room. It was small, with only a computer desk and archive shelves. The entrance was hidden behind the bookshelf in the study. If they didn't enter the study, she might be safe. But what if they did? On the monitor, Evelyn saw Leo's car pull in and park right next to her sedan. Leo and Chloe got out, their faces tense. "Whose car is this?" Leo asked, his voice caught by the porch camera's microphone. He circled Evelyn's car, peering inside. "Is this Evelyn's car?" Chloe exclaimed in panic, her beautiful face pale. "Why is she here? Didn't she say she was going to her mother's in Boston?" "Damn it," Leo cursed. He reached into his pocket, perhaps for a weapon or just his phone. "Find her. She must be inside. Don't let her see us here." Evelyn knew she didn't have much time. She quickly turned off the monitors so their light wouldn't be visible through the crack in the bookshelf. The room was now pitch black, illuminated only by a sliver of light seeping from behind the shelf. Evelyn sat frozen in the corner of the room, praying silently, asking for God's protection. She heard the sound of the front door being forced open. Leo's heavy footsteps and the click of Chloe's heels echoed on the floor below. "Evelyn! Evelyn!" Leo yelled, his voice angry. "Come out!" Sounds of things being thrown around followed. They were checking the kitchen, the guest room, and the downstairs bathroom. "She's not downstairs!" Chloe shouted. "Check upstairs! Check Michael's study!" Evelyn felt like her heart was about to burst. Their footsteps pounded up the stairs, getting closer, louder. The study door was thrown open so hard it slammed against the wall. Evelyn held her breath, pressing her hands to her chest, trying to silence her own heartbeat, which sounded like a war drum in her ears. "Empty." Leo's voice sounded very close, separated only by the bookshelf. "She's not here." "Check the balcony," Chloe ordered. Evelyn heard footsteps moving away toward the balcony door. This was her chance. But she couldn't leave through the study door. She'd have to pass them. She remembered this secret room had a small air vent connected to the attic, and from the attic there was a crawl space to the back roof. It was a risky path, but she had no other choice. But then Chloe's voice came closer again. "Wait, Leo, look at this." Chloe's voice sounded suspicious. "Michael's desk chair has been moved. This morning before we left, I straightened it to face the window. Now it's facing the desk. Maybe the wind," Leo replied impatiently. "The window is shut tight, you idiot." "Someone was sitting here," Chloe hissed. "And look, there are fingerprints in the thin layer of dust on the desk." Evelyn closed her eyes. She had forgotten to return the chair to its original position. Chloe's attention to detail was terrifying. "Do you think he knew about a secret room?" Chloe asked suddenly. Evelyn's blood ran cold. If Chloe knew or even just guessed about this room, it was over for her. "What room?" "Michael never told me anything," Leo answered, confused. Michael was full of secrets. "Help me move this bookshelf. I have a bad feeling," Chloe commanded. The sound of Leo groaning followed, then the heavy scraping of the wooden bookshelf being forcefully pulled. Evelyn was cornered. She saw the handle of the secret door begin to vibrate. They were trying to open it from the outside. Luckily, the door was auto-locked from the inside and made of steel layered with wood, so it wasn't easy to break down. "It's solid, like it's nailed shut," Leo grunted after trying to pull it. "Use a crowbar or a hammer. There's one in the shed downstairs." "Hurry up and get it," Chloe ordered hysterically. Leo ran out of the room, down the stairs. Chloe was still standing in front of the bookshelf, her breathing heavy. Evelyn knew this was the only window of opportunity she had. She couldn't wait for them to come back with a crowbar. She looked up at the air vent. With her remaining strength, Evelyn climbed onto the computer desk, carefully opened the vent cover, and pulled herself up. It was narrow, dirty, and dark. Her dress got caught on a nail, tearing at the hem, but she didn't care. She crawled through the dusty ventilation duct as fast as she could. Below, she heard Leo return, panting. "Move!" he yelled. "Bang! Bang!" The sound of a crowbar hitting the secret door was terrifying. Evelyn kept crawling. Tears and sweat mixed on her face. She reached the end of the vent that led to the utility roof at the back of the cabin. She kicked the vent grill until it broke loose, then jumped down onto the concrete floor. Her ankles stung on landing, but she immediately got up. Rain began to fall in a light drizzle, masking the sound of her footsteps. Evelyn couldn't get her car. The keys were in her purse, which was still in the car. She had to run. She went down the spiral staircase at the back of the cabin that led to the side garden. Sneaking between the wet rose bushes, Evelyn managed to reach a lower side fence. She climbed it with difficulty, ignoring the rose thorns that scratched her palms until they bled. Once her feet touched the ground outside the cabin's property, Evelyn ran as fast as she could, plunging into the darkness of the country road. She didn't look back. She kept running until her lungs burned, heading for the main highway to find help or a ride. In the middle of her flight, under the increasingly heavy rain, Evelyn's fear slowly transformed. The fear hardened, froze, and metamorphosed into a cold vengeance. They thought Evelyn had run away scared. They thought they had won. But they were wrong. Evelyn might have lost the physical recording evidence because she didn't have time to copy it, but she carried something far more dangerous: the memory and knowledge of their crime. Wiping the rain from her face, Evelyn swore in her late husband's name. She wouldn't go to the police now. That would be too easy for them. Prison was too much of a luxury for murderers like Chloe and Leo. Evelyn would destroy them slowly. She would make them feel the same fear, the same pain, before finally dragging them to a living hell. The game had just begun. The heavy rain that night seemed to race with the tears streaming down Evelyn's face. She ran aimlessly along the side of the dark, slick mountain highway. Her feet ached, her breath came in ragged gasps. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the agony in her heart. With every step on the asphalt, the image of Chloe and Leo laughing over her suffering played on a loop in her head. Evelyn finally found a small 24-hour diner still open by the roadside. Shivering from the cold, she asked the owner for help calling a local car service. She didn't dare use a ride-sharing app, afraid Leo could track her through an app on her phone that he might have already compromised. Evelyn asked to be taken to a cheap motel, hidden far from the main road, a place that people of Chloe and Leo's class would never visit. Once in the small, damp-smelling motel room, Evelyn slid to the floor. She stared at her reflection in the old wardrobe mirror. Her hair was a mess. Her dress was caked in mud, and her face was deathly pale. But behind those swollen eyes, a new, unquenchable fire was lit. Evelyn swore she would not be a silent victim. That night, she couldn't sleep a wink. Her mind worked furiously, piecing together fragments of past memories. She recalled the days leading up to Michael's death. Her husband often complained of heart palpitations and cold sweats after taking his medication. At the time, Evelyn wanted to take Michael to the doctor, but Chloe always stopped her, saying Michael just needed rest and that the expensive herbal remedies she brought were more effective than chemical drugs. The next morning, Evelyn took her first step. She didn't go straight back to New York City. She went to the nearest town, bought simple, cheap clothes so she wouldn't stand out, and purchased a used burner phone with a new number. She turned off her old phone completely and buried it at the bottom of her bag. Evelyn had to become a ghost to them. Once she felt safe enough, she rented a cheap car from a local and drove towards the city where her late husband's regular pharmacy was located. She remembered Chloe's words on the CCTV recording about swapping the medicine. Evelyn had to prove it. If there was indeed a medication switch, there had to be a trail at the pharmacy, whether in purchase records or employee testimony. The pharmacy looked the same as it had 2 years ago, located in an old strip mall on the edge of town. Evelyn walked in, her heart pounding. The distinct smell of medicine hit her, bringing back memories of when she often filled prescriptions for Michael. Behind the counter, a young man with glasses was busy arranging vitamin bottles. Evelyn recognized him. It was Kevin, the pharmacy technician who used to help Michael often, because Michael always gave him a generous tip. Evelyn approached, trying to act calm despite her cold, sweaty hands. Kevin looked up and was slightly surprised to see her. He recognized Evelyn, though she now looked thinner, and her eyes held a deep exhaustion. Kevin greeted her warmly and asked how she was doing. Evelyn answered vaguely, then slowly steered the conversation to her main purpose. She said she was organizing her late husband's medical files for insurance purposes and found that records for some prescriptions were missing. Evelyn asked Kevin if he could check Michael's prescription history for the last month before he passed away. Kevin seemed hesitant for a moment, as it was a violation of privacy. But seeing Evelyn's pleading face and remembering the late Michael's kindness, he finally relented. He started typing on his computer, searching the archives from 2 years ago. A long silence fell as Kevin stared at the monitor. Evelyn twisted the hem of her sleeve, holding her breath. Suddenly, Kevin's brow furrowed deeply. He mumbled softly, saying something was strange. Evelyn pressed him, asking what was wrong. Kevin turned the monitor so Evelyn could see. He explained that in that final month, the regular heart medication prescription from Michael's cardiologist was entered into the system, but its status was never filled. The prescription had been canceled. In its place, there was a transaction for a large quantity of a high-dose imported herbal supplement and an energy booster. Evelyn was stunned. She asked who had made that transaction. Kevin tried to remember. He said it wasn't Michael who came in, but a woman who claimed to be a relative. The woman said Michael wanted to try an alternative treatment and that his doctor had approved it. However, the herbal supplement she bought had the side effect of drastically increasing heart rate, which was extremely dangerous for someone with coronary heart disease like Michael. Kevin admitted he had warned the woman, but she was insistent and even showed a power of attorney signed by Michael's wife Evelyn herself. Evelyn's blood boiled. She had never signed any power of attorney for the purchase of herbal medicine. She asked Kevin to show her the physical copy of that document, if it still existed. Kevin went to the back storage room for a long time. The minutes that passed felt like hours to Evelyn. Finally, Kevin returned with a dusty folder. He pulled out a worn piece of paper. Evelyn snatched the paper with a trembling hand. There was a signature under her name, but the lines were stiff and clearly forged. What made Evelyn even more certain was the date on it. On that date, Evelyn was hospitalized with pneumonia, making it impossible for her to have signed it. Evelyn asked Kevin if he remembered the appearance of the woman who picked up the medicine. Kevin closed his eyes, trying to dig into his old memories. He said, "She was beautiful, with long hair. She was very sweet-spoken and persuasive, and her perfume was very strong." Kevin also remembered she wore a gold bracelet with a charm shaped like the letter C. That description was more than enough. It was Chloe. The C charm bracelet had been a birthday gift from Evelyn to Chloe 3 years ago. This evidence was conclusive. Chloe hadn't just poisoned Evelyn's mind, but had literally poisoned Michael's body by swapping his life-saving medication with a deadly poison. Evelyn asked for copies of all the transaction records and the forged power of attorney. Kevin gave them to her with a look of concern, as if he had just realized he had unwittingly become part of the tragedy of Michael's death. Evelyn thanked Kevin and told him to keep her visit a secret from everyone, especially if anyone else asked about Michael's prescriptions. With the evidence in hand, Evelyn left the pharmacy. The scorching afternoon sun couldn't warm her body, which felt frozen by the bitter reality. In her car, Evelyn stared at the papers in her hand. This was her first weapon. Proof of a premeditated murder carried out with chilling precision, but Evelyn knew she couldn't go to the police yet. Leo and Chloe had money and connections. They could bribe their way out or destroy the original evidence if Evelyn made a rash move. Evelyn had to destroy them from the inside, make them suspicious of each other, until they exposed their own crimes themselves. After getting the proof from the pharmacy, Evelyn decided to play the role of a lifetime. She wouldn't run. She would face them. Evelyn reactivated her old phone. Instantly, hundreds of notifications for missed calls and messages from Chloe and Leo flooded her screen. Evelyn took a deep breath, calming her racing heart, and then dialed Chloe's number. She had to sound natural, as if she were the foolish, naive Evelyn, not the Evelyn who had just escaped through an air vent the night before. The phone rang twice before it was answered. Chloe's voice was frantic and hysterical on the other end. She immediately bombarded Evelyn with questions. "Where are you, Evelyn? Why was your car at the cabin but you were gone? Why was your phone off all day?" Chloe's acting was superb. She sounded genuinely worried, like a true best friend. Evelyn closed her eyes, picturing Chloe's deceitful face, then began to speak in a weak, trembling voice, as if she were ill. Evelyn fabricated a story that she had indeed arrived at the cabin the previous afternoon. But as soon as she got out of the car and was about to open the door, she felt extremely dizzy and short of breath. She claimed she saw a large, dark shadow on the porch that resembled the figure of the late Michael with an angry face. Evelyn said she was so terrified and panicked that she ran, leaving the car behind, and hitched a ride on a passing vegetable truck to get down to the highway. Then she took a bus straight back to NYC, too shaken to drive. She claimed she turned off her phone to calm herself and had only just dared to turn it back on. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Evelyn knew Chloe was processing the story, weighing whether it was plausible. But Evelyn knew Chloe's weakness. Chloe always saw Evelyn as a weak, fearful woman who believed in supernatural things. The story about seeing Michael's ghost would surely seem plausible to Chloe, especially given her own hidden guilt. Sure enough, Chloe's voice became calmer, with an undertone of restrained relief. "Thank God you're safe," Chloe said. She then lied, saying she and Leo happened to be passing through the area for business and saw Evelyn's car parked at the empty cabin, which is why they went in to check. Evelyn fought back the urge to gag at the lie. She pretended to thank Chloe for her concern. Evelyn even asked Chloe and Leo for a favor, to bring her car back to the city because she was still too afraid to return to the cabin herself. Chloe eagerly agreed. She said she would take care of the car right away and deliver it to Evelyn's house. The conversation ended with Chloe promising to come over that night to comfort Evelyn. Evelyn hung up and threw the phone onto the car seat. She laughed bitterly. They took the bait. Now they felt safe. They thought their secret was still secure, and that sense of security would be their downfall. That evening, Evelyn was back at her apartment in the city. She showered, put on neat loungewear, and waited for her enemies to arrive. Around 8 p.m., Chloe and Leo arrived with Evelyn's car. They entered her apartment with faces full of fake concern. Leo, who Evelyn had seen laughing smugly on the CCTV, now acted the part of a protective cousin. He lectured Evelyn about going to a secluded place like the cabin alone. Chloe sat beside Evelyn, holding her hand and gently massaging her shoulders. Chloe's touch felt like hot coals on Evelyn's skin. But Evelyn forced a weak smile and said, "Thank you." When Chloe went to the kitchen to make tea, Evelyn launched her first attack. She deliberately placed a manila envelope on the coffee table, right in front of where Leo was sitting. The envelope was empty, but on the outside, Evelyn had written a single sentence in red marker, "Eyewitness, August 12th. August 12th was the date of Michael's death. Leo, seeing the words, immediately tensed up. He stared at the envelope, then at Evelyn with suspicion. Evelyn pretended not to notice, busying herself with finding a tissue in her bag. "What's this, Evelyn?" Leo asked, his voice tight. His hand pointed at the envelope. Evelyn looked over with an innocent expression. "Oh, that? I don't know. It was in the mailbox this morning. I haven't had a chance to open it. Probably a bill or something." "Why, Leo?" Leo quickly hid his nervousness. "No, nothing. The writing just looks weird." When Chloe returned with the tea, Leo gave her a pointed look, gesturing with his eyes toward the envelope. Chloe's face instantly turned pale. The atmosphere in the living room, which had been warm with pretense, now became tense and cold. Evelyn savored every second of it. She saw beads of cold sweat forming on Leo's temple. After they left, Evelyn knew they wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully. And she was right. Evelyn didn't stop there. Using the new number she bought, she sent a short text to Leo's phone. The message read, "That medicine tasted bitter, didn't it? I saw you at the pharmacy that day." Evelyn turned off the burner phone immediately after the message was sent. She imagined the panic erupting between them right now. In the car on their way home, Leo slammed on the brakes, pulling over to the side of the road. He showed the message to Chloe. Leo's face was flushed with anger and fear. "Who sent this? Who knows?" he yelled. Chloe snatched the phone. Her eyes darted wildly as she read the short text. "No one could know. I gave Kevin, that pharmacy tech, hush money back then. Maybe he betrayed us. Or maybe Evelyn knows," Leo accused frantically. "It can't be Evelyn. You saw her yourself just now. She's like a fool, terrified of a ghost," Chloe argued fiercely, though her voice wavered with doubt. "This must be someone else. Someone is blackmailing us." A huge fight broke out in the luxury car. They blamed each other. Leo accused Chloe of being careless when she bought the medicine, and Chloe accused Leo of being too paranoid. Their evil alliance began to crack. Fear was the most powerful weapon to shatter loyalty. In her quiet apartment, Evelyn sat in her late husband's desk chair. She looked at their wedding photo hanging on the wall. "Don't you worry, my love," Evelyn whispered softly. "They've only just had the appetizer. I haven't served the main course yet." Evelyn began to plot her next move, a plan that would make Leo and Chloe feel terrorized by the shadows of their own sins until they wished they were dead rather than live in fear. Fear was the most real ghost of all. Ever since receiving the threatening text from an unknown number, Leo and Chloe's life had turned into an endless nightmare. They could no longer sleep soundly. Every phone ring made them jump. Leo became paranoid, constantly peeking from behind the curtains of his apartment, suspecting someone was watching him. Meanwhile, Chloe, behind her cracking composure, was busy plotting how to save herself. They both arrived at the same conclusion. They needed a large amount of cash, fast. The money was intended either to pay off the mysterious blackmailer or, if things got worse, to fund their escape abroad. The only asset they hadn't yet tapped into was Michael's stash of gold bars, which Leo believed was hidden behind a wall in the Catskills cabin. That very night, they decided to return. Leo sped down the highway toward the mountains. In the passenger seat, Chloe sat anxiously, twisting the hem of her silk blouse. There was none of their usual warm conversation. The air inside the car was heavy and oppressive. When they arrived at the cabin, the atmosphere felt much colder than before. A thick fog had descended, blanketing the yard and making the beautiful roses look hazy and menacing, like hands reaching up from the ground. Leo opened the front door roughly, turning on every light in the house. He didn't want a single dark corner. Unbeknownst to them, Evelyn was already there. She knew how they thought. Greed would always lead them back to where the treasure was. Evelyn had parked her rental car deep in a pine grove and snuck in through a back door for which only she and Michael had the key. Now, Evelyn was hiding in the secret control room behind the bookshelf, the same place where she first witnessed their betrayal. But this time, Evelyn wasn't just watching. She was in control of the smart home system Michael had installed a few months before he died, a system Leo and Chloe never knew how to operate properly. Leo and Chloe began to tear apart the living room. Leo, armed with a large sledgehammer, started tapping the walls near the fireplace, listening for a hollow sound that would indicate a hidden compartment. The sound of the hammer echoed through the quiet house. Chloe helped by holding a flashlight, her face looking tired and stressed. As they were busy arguing about the safe's location, Evelyn initiated her plan. From the control panel in the secret room, she abruptly cut the power to the living room. Pitch blackness. Chloe screamed. Leo swore loudly, fumbling to turn on his phone's flashlight with a trembling hand. "It's just a power outage. Don't be hysterical," Leo snapped, though his own voice was shaky. "Turn on the generator, Leo." "I hate the dark," Chloe whined. Before Leo could move, the sound of classical music began to drift softly from the master bedroom upstairs. It was Michael's favorite piece, the one he always played while relaxing in the afternoon. The music was faint, but eerily clear in the dead silence. Leo and Chloe's faces went pale. They looked at each other, eyes wide with terror. "Who turned on the music?" Chloe whispered, pressing herself against Leo. "Probably a short circuit triggered an old radio," Leo replied, trying to find a logical explanation, though his feet felt leaden. "Let's go check." With hesitant steps, they climbed the stairs. The closer they got to the master bedroom, the more a familiar scent filled the air. The smell of sandalwood mixed with mint, Michael's signature cologne. The scent was so strong it was as if Michael had just walked down the hallway seconds ago. Chloe covered her nose, her eyes welling up with fear. "Leo, that smell. It's Michael's." "Shut up, Chloe. It's just some old air freshener that leaked," Leo retorted, but cold sweat was pouring down his forehead. He kicked open the master bedroom door. Empty. No one was there. The classical music stopped abruptly the moment the door opened. Silence returned. But their eyes were drawn to one object in the middle of the room. Michael's rattan rocking chair, which faced the window, was now rocking slowly back and forth. Creak, creak, creak. Its movement was constant, as if someone were sitting there, enjoying the night view. Chloe screamed hysterically and fled the room, stumbling down the stairs. Leo, trying to act brave, aimed the sledgehammer at the empty chair. "Come out! Who's there? Don't mess with me!" he yelled. No answer, only the sound of the wind howling outside the window. Leo's courage crumbled. He turned and ran after Chloe downstairs. When they reached the dining room, another shock awaited them. On the clean glass table lay a large white envelope. Just 10 minutes ago, when they entered, the table had been empty. Leo approached the table, breathing heavily. He picked up the envelope. Inside was a single photocopied page. It was a copy of a fake medical report, made to look like the results of a re-autopsy of Michael's body, complete with a hospital stamp. At the bottom, written in bold ink, were the words, "Cause of death, aconite herbal poisoning, known by eyewitness." Leo's hands trembled so violently that the paper fell to the floor. Chloe picked it up and read it. Her knees went weak, and she collapsed onto the floor. "They know, Leo. They know the type of poison," Chloe sobbed. "We have to get out of here. Michael's ghost is here. He wants revenge." "It's not a ghost. It's a person." Leo grabbed Chloe's shoulders, shaking her. "Ghosts can't photocopy documents. Someone got in here. We've been set up." Leo ran to the front door, intending to chase the intruder. But when he tried to open it, the handle was stuck. It was locked from the outside. He tried the back door, the windows, all of them were sealed tight. The automated steel security shutters Michael had installed suddenly descended, covering all windows and doors, trapping them inside like rats in a cage. From the hidden speakers in the ceiling, a recording began to play. It was the sound of Michael's laughter from years ago, when he was joking with Evelyn. The laughter would have sounded warm to anyone else, but to Leo and Chloe that night, it sounded like a death sentence. The morning sun crept through the ventilation slits but failed to warm the atmosphere inside the cabin, which now felt like a prison. Leo and Chloe had spent the night huddled together in a corner of the living room, awake all night with bloodshot eyes and thick dark circles. The security shutters automatically retracted at 6 a.m., according to the system's programming. The moment a gap appeared, Leo dragged Chloe out of the house. They no longer cared about gold bars or hidden treasures. All they wanted was to get as far away from that cursed cabin as possible. But the terrifying night had changed their dynamic. The mutual trust that had been the foundation of their crimes was now completely shattered. On the drive back to the city, Chloe was silent, formulating her own plan. She felt Leo was too reckless and emotional. If she stayed with him, she would be dragged down with him. She had to save herself. She remembered the original deed to the cabin, which she had managed to steal from Leo's safe a few days prior, leaving a fake duplicate in its place. The real one was in her handbag now. Chloe intended to sell the cabin quickly to a shady property dealer she knew, then flee the country with the money, leaving Leo to face the ghost or the blackmailer alone. Evelyn, who was tracking their phones through a spyware app she had installed on Leo's phone earlier, saw Chloe's text messages to a man named Mr. Russo, arranging a meeting at an old warehouse in the Bronx for an off-the-books cash transaction. Evelyn smiled coldly. This was a golden opportunity to turn them against each other until they self-destructed. She immediately sent an anonymous text to Leo's number. The message was short but deadly. "Your partner is selling your asset. Old warehouse, Kingfisher Road. 10 a.m. Don't let her run with your money." Leo, who was driving, read the message at a red light. His eyes widened. He turned to look at Chloe, who was pretending to sleep beside him. He roughly rummaged through her handbag. "What the hell are you doing?" Chloe yelled, startled. Leo found the folder containing the original deed. His face turned crimson with explosive rage. "So this is your plan, huh? You were going to sell the cabin and run off alone?" Leo slapped Chloe hard across the face. "Leo, listen to me. I was selling it for us, to pay the blackmailer," Chloe lied, holding her stinging cheek. "Liar, this message says you were going to run." Leo slammed his phone on the dashboard. Without another word, he made a reckless U-turn. He wasn't heading back to his apartment. He was speeding towards the warehouse address from the text. He wanted to catch Chloe meeting her buyer and teach them all a lesson. Chloe cried and screamed to be let out, but Leo was blinded by rage. He centrally locked the doors and drove like a maniac. When they arrived at the deserted warehouse area, Leo saw a black sedan already parked there. It was the buyer, an actor hired by Evelyn who was simply told to wait. Leo assumed it was Chloe's accomplice. He dragged Chloe out of the car. "Where is he? Where's the guy you were going to give this deed to?" Leo shook her. Chloe, terrified, saw Leo grab a tire iron from the trunk. "Leo, snap out of it! We're being set up, there's no buyer," she pleaded. But it was useless. Leo strode toward the black sedan, yelling for the person inside to get out. While Leo's attention was diverted, Chloe saw her chance. She pushed him with all her might, sending him stumbling. Then she scrambled into the driver's seat of their car, locked the doors, and tried to start the engine. Realizing Chloe was trying to escape, Leo ran after her, smashing the side window with the tire iron. Crash! The glass shattered. Chloe screamed and slammed her foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, nearly hitting Leo. Leo didn't give up. He saw an old pickup truck with the keys still in the ignition by the warehouse door, a coincidence also arranged by Evelyn. He jumped in and chased after Chloe. A high-speed chase ensued on the deserted back roads. A panicked Chloe was driving erratically, seeing Leo getting closer in her rearview mirror. His face looked like a demon's. At a sharp turn, Chloe lost control. The luxury car skidded, hit the guardrail, spun several times, and finally crashed into a large tree. Smoke billowed from the hood. Leo stopped the pickup right behind her. He got out, panting, the tire iron still in his hand. He walked toward the wreck. Chloe was still conscious, pinned by the steering wheel. She whimpered for help when she saw Leo approach. But instead of helping, Leo laughed hysterically. "Where are you going to run now, Chloe? We're a package deal. If I go down, you go down with me." Suddenly, the sound of police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Evelyn had called the police, reporting a brutal fight and car accident. Leo panicked. He couldn't get caught here with a weapon in his hand and Chloe in this state. He dragged Chloe from the wrecked car, ignoring her screams of pain. "Get up! We have to go!" he barked. He shoved her into the old pickup. "My ribs. I think they're broken," Chloe moaned. "Shut up or I'll finish you right here." Leo spun the pickup around and fled onto a dirt road leading back toward the mountains. In his chaotic mind, there was only one safe place: the cabin. The cabin with its high-tech security and thick walls. He thought he could hide there, get the gold, and escape through the forest behind it. He didn't realize he was running straight back into the lion's den. Evelyn wanted them back there. The final stage was set, and this time there would be no exit. The old pickup truck roared as it climbed the steep road to the cabin, its engine pushed beyond its limits. In the passenger seat, Chloe huddled in agony. Her face was bruised, her breathing shallow and pained from her broken ribs. The elegant socialite was gone, replaced by a terrified woman trapped with a man who had lost his mind. Once they reached the cabin, Leo didn't bother to park properly, leaving the truck askew in the middle of the beautiful rose garden. He dragged Chloe inside, slammed the door, and barricaded it with furniture. The sky outside darkened as a storm rolled in. Leo grabbed the sledgehammer and crowbar again. He began smashing the wall by the fireplace, his eyes wild. Dust and debris filled the air. Finally, a metallic clang. He hammered harder until a black iron-safe door, embedded in the wall, was revealed. He laughed maniacally, his ticket to freedom. But his laughter died when he saw the lock. It was a digital keypad requiring a 6-digit code. He tried Michael's birthday. Wrong. Michael's date of death. Wrong again. He grabbed Chloe, demanding the code, but she tearfully insisted she didn't know. As Leo frantically guessed at the code, all the lights in the cabin died. Darkness. Thunder crashed outside, and a flash of lightning illuminated the room. From the home audio system, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the second floor. Leo yelled into the darkness, challenging whoever was there. The footsteps stopped, replaced by a recording of Michael's voice, calm and clear. "You know why I built this cabin? As a sanctuary for my family, not a hideout for traitors." Chloe sobbed, begging for forgiveness, thinking Michael's ghost had returned. The voice continued, "You want the gold? It's here. But only someone truly sincere knows the key. Someone who remembers the happiest day of my life." Leo froze. The happiest day? He'd already tried their wedding anniversary. It failed. Suddenly, Chloe remembered something. "Try the date they first met, Leo," she whispered. Michael told me he fell in love at first sight. February 14th, in the rain at a campus bus stop. With trembling hands, Leo punched in the numbers. 021495. A soft click. The indicator light turned green. The safe door popped open. He cheered, yanking the heavy door wide open. He shone his phone's light inside, expecting to see gleaming gold bars. The safe was empty. There was no gold, no cash, just a single small object in the center. A digital tablet. Its screen lit up as the door opened, showing a live feed of Evelyn's face. She was sitting comfortably, staring into the camera with a cold, piercing gaze. "Congratulations, Leo. You cracked the code." Evelyn's voice came directly from the tablet's speaker. "But I'm afraid you're 2 years too late. I moved all the valuables to a secure bank vault 2 days after Michael died." Leo roared in fury, smashing the tablet on the floor. "Come out, Evelyn! I know you're here! Stop hiding like a coward." He realized he wasn't fighting a ghost, but an intelligent, vengeful Evelyn. He grabbed the crowbar and charged for the stairs. But as he reached the landing, a blinding spotlight from above flashed in his eyes. When the light dimmed, he saw her. At the top of the stairs, Evelyn stood calmly, holding a small remote for the smart home system. "Drop your weapon, Leo," she said, her voice flat. He laughed. "You're all alone. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." He lunged forward. Evelyn pressed a button. White smoke from the fire suppression system instantly filled the staircase, blinding and choking him. He swung the crowbar wildly, hitting nothing. "Michael installed this system to protect us from burglars," Evelyn's voice echoed from the speakers. "He just never imagined the burglar would be his own cousin." The smoke cleared. Leo, eyes red and watering, saw Evelyn still standing there. "You set us up!" he screamed. "I only laid the bait," Evelyn replied calmly. "Your own greed made you bite. You murdered my husband. You slowly poisoned him. Did you think God was asleep?" "To hell with God!" Leo roared, the confession finally bursting out. "Yes, I planned it. I told Chloe to switch that damn medicine." Michael was a fool. He had everything, but he was cheap. He deserved to die. And tonight, you're going to join him. He charged up the stairs again. They were only feet apart. But Evelyn remained calm. She raised her hand and pointed to the corners of the ceiling. "Look up, Leo." He glanced up instinctively. He saw the small, blinking red lights of several security cameras. "They're not just recording," Evelyn continued, a deadly hint of a smile on her lips. "The system is connected to the internet. The moment the lights came on, I started a live stream to our family's foundation, to Michael's law firm partners, and the link was automatically sent to the county sheriff's emergency line." Leo froze, the crowbar feeling impossibly heavy. "What?" His voice was a choked whisper. "Everyone just heard you scream, Leo," Evelyn said with satisfaction. "Thousands of people are watching right now. They heard your confession. They see your face, the weapon in your hand, your madness. You just confessed your crime in front of a judge, jury, and the entire world." Leo's face went white as a sheet. He looked at the nearest camera in horror. Reality hit him like a freight train. This wasn't a physical fight anymore. It was a perfect social and legal execution. His knees buckled, and the crowbar clattered down the stairs. From outside, the faint sound of police sirens grew louder, multiplying, cutting through the storm. Leo stumbled back down the stairs, past Chloe's prone form, and frantically tried to clear the barricade at the front door. He yanked it open. Wind and rain blasted in, but he couldn't step out. The cabin yard was bathed in the flashing red and blue lights of a dozen police cars. Several armed officers were in position, weapons aimed at him. "Hands up! You're surrounded!" A voice boomed through a megaphone. Leo was frozen in the doorway. "Behind him?" Chloe wailed, realizing their fate was sealed. From the top of the stairs, Evelyn descended slowly. She walked past the weeping Chloe, past the catatonic Leo, and stepped out onto the covered porch. She stood in the wind as officers swarmed in, cuffing Leo and forcing him face down into the mud, the same mud where Michael's roses grew. Medics carried Chloe out on a stretcher. Their eyes met. Chloe tried to reach for her, mouthing the word sorry. Evelyn just stared back, her expression unreadable. "Save your apologies for the final judgment, Chloe," she whispered. In this world, you will pay for what you did in full. That night, the quiet cabin in the Catskills became a witness to the downfall of human greed. As the police cars drove away, Evelyn felt not happiness, but a profound relief. The heavy burden on her chest for 2 years had finally been lifted. Justice had been served, not with violence, but with the intelligence and patience of a wounded wife. Amidst the receding storm, Evelyn knew that tomorrow's sun would rise brighter than ever before. The news of the arrest spread like wildfire. Thanks to Evelyn's live stream, the dramatic capture became a public spectacle. Within hours, Leo and Chloe were infamous, their names and faces plastered across the internet, met with a torrent of public condemnation. In separate interrogation rooms, their alliance crumbled completely. Confronted with the undeniable video evidence of his confession, Leo's bravado vanished. The coward within emerged, and he blamed everything on Chloe, claiming she was the manipulative mastermind who seduced him into her wicked plan. Meanwhile, when Chloe heard the recording of Leo's betrayal, she erupted in a hysterical rage. She retaliated by exposing every detail of Leo's role, revealing his massive online gambling debts as the primary motive. She told investigators about his plans to eventually have Evelyn killed as well to gain full control of the inheritance. The two criminals devoured each other, each hoping to lessen their own sentence by condemning the other. Evelyn, sitting with her lawyer, listened to the detective's report with a calm, stoic expression. There was no joy in their destruction, only a deep sense of finality. The truth was out. 6 months later, the gavel fell in a packed courtroom. The verdict was delivered, guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy, forgery, and embezzlement. The judge, citing the calculated cruelty of their crime and their lack of genuine remorse, showed no mercy. Leo was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Upon hearing the verdict, he fainted in his chair. Chloe received a sentence of 25 years to life. Their social and financial worlds had already been obliterated. Their names would forever be a cautionary tale of greed and betrayal. After the trial, Evelyn returned to the cabin in the Catskills. It looked different now. She had renovated it completely, removing every piece of furniture Chloe and Leo had touched, even replastering the wall where the safe had been. She wanted to erase their negative energy from the place for good. The one thing she didn't change was the rose garden. The flowers were still thriving, their red and white blooms a vibrant celebration of good triumphing over evil. Following a wish Michael had once expressed, Evelyn didn't sell the cabin. She transformed it. A new, artfully carved wooden sign now hung at the gate, Michael's Hope House. Evelyn had turned the property into a foundation, a safe home for high-achieving foster children who needed a place to live and study. The laughter of children now filled the rooms that were once silent and menacing. The living room where Leo had once plotted became a study hall where children read books and chased their dreams. That afternoon, Evelyn sat on a garden bench, watching the children play amongst the roses. The cool mountain air gently rustled her hair. A little girl ran up to her and handed her a freshly picked white rose. Evelyn smiled, accepted the flower, and stroked the child's head affectionately. An incredible peace filled her heart. The rage and grief that once consumed her had been replaced by gratitude and tranquility. She looked up at the orange-tinted sky, feeling as if Michael were smiling down at her. She knew he would be proud. The fortune that had been the source of so much greed and tragedy was now a source of blessing for many. "It's all over now, my love," Evelyn whispered to the wind. "You can rest in peace. Our home is clean again, as clean as your heart always was." As the distant chime of church bells echoed through the valley, Evelyn stood up. She walked back into the house, now filled with light and life. There were no more ghosts of the past, no more fear. Evelyn had closed the darkest chapter of her life and opened a new one, full of hope. She had learned that evil might win for a moment, but in the end, love and justice, though they may take time, would always have the final word.